Welcome to Stories from the Pitch, a podcast dedicated to creating a living oral history about street performing and some of the crazy characters who populate this world. I'm Magic Brian, your host for this growing collection of interviews. In this episode, Al Millar sat down with Kenny Lightfoot to talk about his nearly 40-year career as a street performer, starting out doing shows in San Francisco at the age of 21. They recorded this about a year ago in Bob Bessman's rehearsal studio in Kanab, Utah. If you've never met or seen Kenny, he has one of the most unique magic shows on the streets and a finale you can watch over and over and over. I've run into Kenny in several countries. It just seems to appear out of nowhere, like magic. He and Al got into some specifics about many of the pitches he's worked, especially in the US, Australia, and New Zealand, and they talk about his approach to street performing and building a show. He shares stories about working Pearl Street in Boulder starting back in the 90s, and runs through many of the performers that worked the pitch, and talks about how that's where he came up with his very unique finale, throwing a playing card on the roof of a building. He's definitely put his time in on the streets, working up from sleeping on a bench, to his car, to a weekly hotel, to traveling the world. It's a fascinating story that I hope you'll enjoy.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We're sitting here in Kanab, Utah, November 1st, 2019. We've just been up in Zion National Park hiking. I'm sitting here with a legend, an icon, a master of street performing, Kenny motherfucking Lightfoot.
Motherfucking.
Just Kenny Lightfoot.
That's not, I never motherfucking.
It's Kenny Lightfoot. And he's a master of street performing. From when did you start street performing?
Oh, that's a good question. Jeez, man. I think I was 21. I started 21, so that's 30 years ago. 51
now.
Oh, no, sorry. It's 40 years ago.
You're 61?
Okay, 39 years ago.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
So you're 60 then?
Yeah.
Oh, you don't look a day older than 60.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that.
So you started when you're 21. Where?
San Francisco. Actually, my first performance ever was in Carmel, California.
Right.
And they kicked me out.
Where's Carmel?
That's right next to Monterey, California, but it's the high-end district of Monterey.
Okay. And so it didn't go so well?
Oh, the police stopped me.
All right.
So I did the show and they stopped
America, yay!
Yeah, exactly. And that would have been it still would be a good pitch if you could work it.
Right.
So if anybody wants to go out there and try to open that up, pull it off, yeah. Because it's high-end area.
Right. Yeah. Wow. And so that was your first show ever?
Yeah. It was my first show, even as a magician, I think.
So where did you continue street performing then?
Well, I moved out of. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, so I moved out of Pittsburgh to become a professional gambler in Vegas.
Really?
Yeah.
Poker?
No, blackjack. And then after lasting about 6 months and losing all my money, I had an aunt in Monterey. And so I went out to Monterey and did telephone operating and then went down. That's why I tried it in Carmel.
Right.
And then I went up to San Francisco and saw some other performers up there.
And you had been doing magic before that?
I'd been studying magic before that, but I never actually performed it. So it just seemed a logical thing, as if I don't have to market myself. I just have to go out on the street and do it.
Yeah, it's the best thing about it.
So I had the skills, as technical skills, but I didn't have otherwise, yeah.
Right, so you had the chops, but not the street performing chops.
Yeah, exactly.
Who helped you out with that?
Nobody really helped me out in street performing. I just read. I was a very bookaholic type of person. But there's back in that time, street performing is not really there's a few good books out there, but for the most part, you just got to go out there and do it and make your mistakes. And
what performance did you see back then?
When I first got out there, and even before I even went to San Francisco, I saw in Monterey, and he was a street performer back in the day, but I never saw him as a street performer. It was H.P. Lovecraft, and he was at the Monterey County Fair.
Right.
So I saw his show there. Actually, I went up and talked to him until I was interested in street performing. He invited me to come back and see his show.
Right.
And I went back to see his show. He did a medicine show, by the way. H.P. Lovecraft did a medicine show. But it was really well constructed. And I was just too intimidated to even come back and talk.
So you didn't go talk to him?
after I saw the show, I was like, fuck, that's, you didn't have your idea of, I'm a magician, I know how to just go out and do it, and you see him, and like, geez, I just couldn't talk.
I've heard the name. What kind of stuff did he do?
It was like a comedy medicine show, so it was, it was really well done. I think there might be even a book on his thing, and I think he still performs.
Right, really?
Yeah, and he was in the same era as Harry Anderson, so they were at the same era, and I think Amazing Jonathan was close in that area as well.
Is this the 70s or the 80s?
80s.
Right.
I don't know what Harry Anderson and because when I was Harry Anderson was already he was doing a college circuit, I believe, at that time. So was Jonathan and Lovecraft. I think was just doing fairs. So maybe it was I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
And who was did they really influence you, those two, or other guys?
I mean, I really liked Harry Anderson because I never saw a show.
Right.
So I never actually saw his show back in those days, and he wasn't even the one that I saw at the comedy clubs was Amazing Jonathan.
Right.
And
he was doing street back then, or just?
It was right after his street. He went from street to comedy club,
right.
And he took off from there.
Yeah.
And that his original shows, just like Penn and Teller's original show, was brilliant.
Right.
Because a lot of times your original show is the brilliant show.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
So if you get to see Amazing Jonathan's original show, don't miss it.
Right.
It's the same thing with Penn and Teller's original show.
Yeah.
But who was down there? And I went to San Francisco. So when I went back, lost money, then went back to Pittsburgh, and then came back and
went to San
Francisco.
Right.
And said, well, to go to San Francisco and be a performer.
Had you heard about that as a pitch before?
Yeah, because I was in Monterey, so I did a weekend up to San Francisco and saw some of the performers, I believe.
Okay.
And the king at that time pretty much was Robert Nelson. He was the big, and he was in the gesture outfit, which is a lot of people have seen him with that. Yeah,
man, it's such a great juxtaposition.
Yeah.
Being a total asshole, but wearing
it was perfect. Loud. Yeah. Brilliant. It was before all the big unicycles. He was on just a little,
a regular unicycle.
Yeah. So it was brilliant, and so he was pretty much. Who else was there? American Dream, which was Scotty Meltzer and I forget.
John Park?
Yeah, John Park.
Yeah.
So they were there. They were like they were the big team act.
Yeah.
And I'll say a High Street Circus, which is, one of them still is up in Pier 39. He went back. Millar, I think.
Right.
They were there. And Fred Anderson was one of the...
Man, he's still there.
Yeah, and he's the one that... He's
Scotty's the coordinator now up there.
Exactly, at Pier 39. Mm-hmm. And back then it wasn't just Pier 39, it was the Anchorage and the Cannery, which was the brilliant, really theatrical spot, and the Ghirardelli.
Right.
And what's the
one with the balconies and that?
Pier 39 had the balconies.
Right.
And all of them had... No, Cannery didn't have the balconies, but Anchorage did. You wouldn't recognize Anchorage from what it looks like now to what it was before. And what's the guy's name that used to do Beaver the Cleaver? Michael Davis.
Oh, right.
He wasn't there, but he would not. From what I heard, he never worked Pier 39 because it didn't work. The energy's too crazy.
Juggling legend.
But the Cannery was a perfect scenario for him. Mm-hmm. But the big act, and even Robert Nelson, I don't know if they ever would probably say that, was, we were talking about Bob Hartman. It was a puppeteer, didn't have a big crowd, but brilliant routine. Right. If you give it a chance to look on YouTube, it's Bob Hartman. Whoa, it's incredible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was everybody, any puppeteer would be highly respected. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. And what did your show consist of back then?
Back then I had a bird. So originally I was going to have a bird. I had a bird. Most street performers wouldn't know, but a magician wouldn't know, because I was a guy named Tommy Wonder. He did a routine where his a 2-cup ball routine where the bag ended up underneath the cup. So I was through misdirection, so I had a bird, and I was going to get the bird underneath the cup through misdirection.
Right.
But it didn't work, so I just had the bird.
He didn't want to stay with the cup?
Well, it was a lovebird, and they bite, so you can grab them and try and stick them and bite in your hand.
Right.
They're sticking. It's not like a parakeet or a dove, which wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
But he was in my show.
Right.
So initially, I had a bird who retrieved and also jumped through a hoop of fire. So that was and also what other tricks did I do? Initially I did a burnt bill routine. I did a lot of cart slides because that's what I was. I was mainly a cart guy. So
and were you doing like a close-up show, or was
it was. In fact, it wasn't on the pier. It was on the sidewalk on Jefferson Street.
Right.
And that's where mainly the only ones who were working, magicians who were working Pier 39 or any of the stages at that time was Ken Sonkin, who still is I don't know if he's not I think he's a director of acting. He was an acting. He graduated from acting school or a university, and I think he's still a director in San Francisco.
Right.
But a brilliant silent show doing box tricks, but really well done. In fact, the first year he arrived, there was always a competition in Pier 39, and I heard he just blew everybody away.
Really?
Yeah. Which is when there was some good acts there.
Yeah, it's really, San Francisco was one of the first street performing hubs, and definitely in America, as London was in the UK, but lots of big acts came out of there, and lots of way different acts, really unique.
It was different back then because there were, Ghirardelli had the marionettes that were really strong marionettes, and it's hard to imagine marionettes would hold really good crowds and make good money.
I mean, a long time ago, anything would hold a crowd.
Yeah.
The TV and the internet and all that crazy, the phones and everything. People had attention span. People watched Tim Eric get out of a straitjacket for an hour.
Yeah. That was it. Yeah, exactly. Back then, they would appreciate things more. Mm-hmm. I mean, they still do, but you got to be more savvy now, or be savvy for this new audience.
And you were saying something earlier about when you start street performing, you learn how to perform to that audience, and now it's so much longer later. You have to relearn.
Exactly, because it's a different audience. It is a different audience. So the people that are starting now, a lot of them, that's their audience that they're working with.
Right.
So that's your canvas.
Yeah.
Those people are your canvas. And a lot of the people, the older performers, are working for an older campus.
Right.
Like, this is not the same people I've been, But you adapt, or some people don't. That's how it goes. Yeah,
you kind of have to. I adapt weekly to different things on the pitch.
Yeah.
I'm always changing my hat pitch. I'm always changing my build. Throwing in different jokes, taking out other jokes.
Yeah. And even the cost of living has changed, so people are still in the business. What was that dollar tip doesn't work anymore.
No.
If you get a dollar tip, you're not going to survive.
Right.
You need 5s, 10s, 20s, and hopefully you can get more than that. So,
does your hat pitch change pretty often, or is it pretty much the same?
I've never been comfortable with my hat pitch.
Really?
I know you always have to raise it, and there's certain. I used to do a lot of jokes at the end. And though they made the laugh, they didn't take you seriously. So hat pitch is a delicate balance. You want to make them laugh and enjoy it, make them not feel
it's got to sound sincere, and it has to be believable and also funny.
Yeah. But you can't say, okay, we're not going to give them
genuine.
Yeah,
that's the word, I reckon.
Yeah, if you can master the hat pitch and you get the crowd and master the hat pitch, then you got it. But
sometimes you can have a terrible show and kill the hat pitch, great, and still get paid well.
Yeah, definitely.
No one knows you had a bad show, but you do.
No. Yeah. Well, if I have a really bad show, I won't collect.
Really?
Yeah. Sometimes they want to give you money, and I just.
Will you abandon your hat pitch?
I will. I've done it.
Really?
Yeah. One time, a guy, I was like, no, and the guy gave me a set. I don't want it. And sometimes they want to. Well, I don't know if you've ever abandoned yours, but
I get it.
But sometimes they're like, here. And it's like, no, I don't. And they're trying to give it to you because they want to give you something. The one guy, I said, if you give it to him, I'm just going to throw it away, tear it up and throw it away. And the guy gave me $100 bills, with their ego, because they're thinking,
right.
Just teared it up right in front of his face and threw it in the garbage.
Oh.
That money doesn't make any, no, collectively over time that money makes a difference, but one individual show, even a $100 bill doesn't make.
Do you remember what happened in the show? Did you quit the show?
I don't remember. I have no idea. But
did you finish the show, or did you?
I can't even recall because I don't want to. Even though the reason that I don't want the money is because I don't want to think of the show. I don't remember that show.
Right.
I want that out of my thing. So I don't have no concepts of what.
Clean slate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can always do that.
Yeah. No, that feeling in a show when it's not going well and you go, and it crosses your mind to quit. Mm-hmm. Like I try and hurdle that.
Yeah, yeah.
And just go, nah, I'm going to win them over at some point.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I'm all the way up to my finale doing my hat pitch, and I'm like, I still didn't win them over. But
and you never know what they'll give you to.
Finale now.
Yeah.
You never know. That's it.
Sometimes you think it's terrible, and they pay.
Yeah. You know your hat pitch, and you get down and collect your hat, and it's great.
Yeah. And I know you're up high, so you're going to get a bigger crowd. But even if the crowd is smaller, sometimes the percentage of large notes is going to be outpace what you thought.
Yeah. So. Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. Like I used to always be able to just milk that money out of even the smallest crowd. I would go, okay, this is going to be a small one. I'm going to really put some hard work into it and really try harder.
Yeah.
The hat really makes you work harder, doesn't it?
Does it make me work harder?
If you're getting paid to do a show, or versus going to do a street show, are you funnier, or do you work harder at the street show?
Well, if it's a paid gig, it's easier.
It is,
and I've done paid gigs inside, and the same thing that I would do in the street would have been not a struggle, but it would have been a solid show.
Let's say
inside, I would kill, and they would be laughing like crazy, and I'm like, you're like waiting for them to stop laughing.
Let's say you get a gig that's like 18 days, 3 shows a day, paid. Like, at any point during that gig, do you start to lose interest because there's no hat?
No, when I'm in it, I'm in it.
Right.
I'm totally in it. That's who that's my existence. I have no life outside of. I have no life. I mean, you're married. I have no life. This is all I have is performing. That's it. Mm-hmm. And so when I'm in it, I'm in it, and that's it. That's my life. That's it. So
that's amazing. When you were in San Francisco, where else did you travel to work?
When I was in San Francisco.
Well, back then you were in San Francisco in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So which other pitches did you go to?
In San Francisco, when I was specifically in San Francisco, the only places I would work is down on Jefferson Street, and then street festivals. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would do in San Francisco. And then I started traveling up to... after leaving San Francisco, I went up to Seattle and worked Seattle for a while.
Oh, what's the pitch up there?
It was Pike Place Market at the time.
Right.
And
the home of Starbucks.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we do. And on the weekends, it would be down. There's a water area. I heard they're building it up now. It's going to be a new pitch or something like that. But now that place is wide open, so there's other spots as well.
I once did a show in Seattle. I was traveling with a circus, and we had a day. And myself and Magic Brian, I'd heard about a place to work. There wasn't really an established pitch, but someone else I know had worked it. We went and did it, and went great. And then Magic Brian went to do it, and I think it got stopped. The police eventually showed up. Yeah. That just happens all over the States.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I told you in Carmel, the first time I tried it.
First time ever.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Welcome to the street life.
Yeah.
And I've never performed in Pittsburgh.
Right.
They tried to stop. I came to Pittsburgh to try to do a show after years of performing, and went into the square downtown, and I knew it was going to be a difficult pitch regardless, but I wanted to just like say, I did a show in Pittsburgh.
Right.
And then I was setting up, and then a police stopped me and said, "Oh, you can't do
magic here.
You can't perform here yet. It's a perfect square to do." And then he said, "Oh, well, because you can't collect money." Mm-hmm. And so I decided, I said, "Well, I won't collect money. I'll just do the show. I just wanted to do the show." And then I started setting up and plugged in my
can't use an amplifier.
Yeah. And I knew it was, this was a tough pitch.
Yeah.
And I was like, forget it. And so he was basically paid to guard a piece of concrete.
Yeah.
And keep it that way.
It's a shame. There's so many dream pitches in this country.
Yeah.
That you just can't do shows at.
Yeah. They could have, after the earthquake in Santa Cruz, they should have made that the main street a pedestrian area, and did like most of like Australia does and like Europe does.
Walking streets.
Yeah, even the walking streets, they let the cars deliver their stuff at a certain time, up until that time. Uh-huh. After that time, then they have it's a pedestrian area.
It's a nice place to meet, and see people.
It keeps the downtown alive.
Yeah.
People don't just leave and go home. Mm-hmm. They let us hang out.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you went to Seattle, and when did you find like another pitch that you wanted to stay at and could stay at?
Yeah, I went to Seattle, did Seattle for a couple months or something like that, and then I went down and then I stopped off and did a weekend in Portland because they have a Saturday market or something. Right. Sunday market, I can't remember which one, probably Saturday market.
Yeah.
So I tried that one.
I've heard of that.
I was up there, tried that one, and then I came down. I think I might have came back to San Francisco for a little bit. Then I went down to L.A.
Right on.
I worked Venice Beach.
You did?
Yeah, and that was tough.
Yeah.
I was living in my car at that time.
Right.
In fact, when I first went to San Francisco, I was living in my car.
Right.
No, and when I first went to San Francisco, I wasn't living in a car. I was living... Oh, yeah, and I had the bird. That was... Yeah, now I remember. I had my bird, and I used to pay the Greyhound for the locker and keep my sleeping bag in the locker.
Right.
And then I would go down...
The bus station.
Huh? Yeah,
the bus station.
The Greyhound.
Right on.
And then I would go down and do... Because I wasn't good, I would do balloons first in the morning, and then in the evening I would do a show.
Right.
So I could get my skills up. And I remember... and then in the evening I would go down to the locker, take my sleeping bag up, go to the park in the marina, which is the next... and sleep on the park bench.
Right.
Like a bird.
Wow.
And the same thing until I could afford a car. When I got a car, I was sleeping in the car. And then after that, after I slept in the car for a while, then I saved up enough money and just got one of those weekly hotels, which you couldn't do back in the day. I think San Francisco was way too expensive to do it now.
Right, yeah, of course.
But back in the day, you could do that. And so I did that. And then after that, that's basically progression.
This is all the 80s?
Yeah, late 80s. I can't remember what it...
it was all West Coast then?
I was up and, I did the whole West Coast.
In San Diego?
Yeah, well, after Venice Beach, they put me in... they arrested me.
Oh, they did again? Jeez. You didn't have much luck with that, eh?
I didn't get arrested in any of those other places, but I got arrested. The first time I got it wasn't arrested, but they detained me.
Right.
And because they would, and I had, so they had me in handcuffs in their thing in Venice Beach. I was there for a while in Venice Beach performing until and then.
You got arrested performing in Venice Beach?
Yeah.
Among other performers?
No, just me.
Oh.
Because the cops could do that at a time and they give you a hard time.
Right.
I wasn't a sue but I didn't get around to sue.
No, well, there's still time.
No, there's no time. But, yeah.
Statute of limitation on that?
That was a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went from in Venice Beach. Who was down there? Matt and Chad were down there. The chainsaw juggler who went on Johnny Carson and told him that he was making money and had Porsches and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I had heard about that.
Yeah, he was the big
and he got, the tax department came after him.
Yeah, and they started doing cruise ships, hospitality stuff. Yeah, he was there, and so was, and Tony Vera showed up as well.
Fireman?
Yeah.
Right on.
And Michael Collier, who you probably don't know.
Comedian.
He was a comedian, yeah. He was there.
Yeah.
And there were two other comedians there too, two black comedians that did the difference between white guys and white people and black people, and they were really brilliant how they transformed themselves. But they disappeared. Because that was going to the crack aspect, and I'm not putting that on them that that's what happened to them, but they had a brilliant act, and they were better than Tony Vera. But Tony Vera, you could tell he was making as much money as anybody else down there.
Right.
But they disappeared, so I just assumed that there was a lot of people who got hung up on the crack thing back then. Yeah. I think it's crack back then. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, mate. It was an epidemic, you know?
Yeah. I didn't do any of that stuff, so.
No, you can't. I mean, you want to be an entertainer.
Yeah.
Successful.
Jonathan, he was doing pretty good.
Oh, yeah, still. I mean, yeah.
I think Robert was doing a lot too. Money, I think, wasn't that crack. He was doing cocaine or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
Performer's drug.
Right. Yeah. Apparently. Yeah. I've not tried it, but I hear things about performing on cocaine.
Yeah. So I ended up in San Diego.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've heard about Balboa Park. I've never been there.
It was an interesting time in Balboa Park. It was the big act there, who doesn't work there now, and we were talking about the other guy who makes the big unicycles. I forgot his name.
Tom Millar.
Yeah, Tom Millar. So he was the guy flying. Chuck Marquette at the time. His name was Chuck Marquette at the time.
All right.
One of the best unicycle street performers, probably the best unicycle street performer I've ever seen in my entire life.
Just a unicycle show.
Just a unicycle show. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All unicycles, different types of unicycles, and he was, and he did a 22-footer. That was his closer.
Whoa! No one's doing that, man.
No, nobody does a 22. No. So when he did the unicycle, everybody else just waited. You know,
right.
Okay, we'll do the unicycle. Because the park stops. Everybody watches the unicycle.
Yeah.
And his presentation at that time wasn't as good. I mean, he got better but it wasn't as good at the time. In fact, I told Mark Riggs that story about that. He said that's what inspired him.
Really?
To get the bigger unicycle. Because it was two things. That he said, me telling him that everything stopped when Chuck did the big unicycle.
Right.
And everybody watched him. And also, Mark said that he didn't like to have people only see he wanted them to see
all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that.
And his show transformed once he did that.
Yeah, I think if your feet are far above the audience, that's great. Every foot that your feet are above the audience is just more cash in the hat.
Yeah. And that was a transformation of him being better than Tom, because I saw him arrive in Colorado with Tom. And though he had said he'd
Tumbleweed Tom.
Tom,
what's his last name?
Tom Morrison.
Tom Morrison.
Yeah. And Tom was the big act.
Right.
And then the next year he came with that big unicycle, and
Mark was the man.
And Mark was the man.
Right. And that was the 90s, early 90s?
It had to be in the 90s, yeah. So I don't know how long.
And that's when you started going to Boulder? You'd heard about it?
Yeah, and I heard about it in San Francisco from some guy in San Francisco who said that he was a mountain climber, a rock climber. Okay. And he said that Boulder, you could street perform in Boulder.
I wonder who started, I think Lee Ross had something to do with starting that pitch.
No, he didn't. No, Lee didn't. Lee wasn't even there. Evan was one of the ones who made it happen. But opening that pitch, I forget who it was. There's a guy named Evan from Heaven who doesn't work there anymore, but he's still there. He's a political activist.
Oh, right.
And they wanted to shut the pitch, the performer, get rid of the performers, and it was because of Evan Ravitz is his name.
Opened it up.
That he went and fought it. And he's still a political activist. And he was a rope walker.
Right on.
And so his name is Evan from Heaven. That's what he used to call him.
That's a great name for a rope walker.
Yeah, and he used to slide down the rope at the end because it was tied down, so he would slide it down, which is something not too many people do. But he's still there. So down San Diego for a while and hanging out with Chuck or Chaz, what did you call himself? No, I don't think he's performing anymore.
Right.
And Jamie Atkins was there at the time. I don't know if you know Jamie.
No.
So Jamie, there was a number of Sean McKinney was there with his partner, which was Stephen Hess. So there was a lot of young performers. So I was the older guy then, and they were all young, like high school. They were
really?
These were all still in high school.
Where were they learning the tricks? In high school?
They were, because they were hanging out, and I guess, I forget, Edward Jackman was... I wasn't there when Edward Jackman was there, and the other guy, who's Kit Summers, was there at a certain time as well. Yeah. And they were, from what I heard, when I arrived, they said they used to camp out just to get the pitch, because the first one to get the pitch got the pitch.
That sounds like the same story in London.
Okay, so that's what they did. They were sleeping in bushes.
People, who invented the draw?
I don't know. But then they started regulating.
Revolutionized street theater. We can all sleep in.
Yeah. Jamie's circus, what's his act now? Ridiculous. No, Circus Incognitus. And so he's got really blossomed his show, because he went up to San Francisco and started working for Pickle and then working the Pier.
Right.
But his show's very good now.
And so you were working with the Bird at this time? And was that
always at the Bird, yeah. What's that?
What was your finale? What it is now?
The finale came about. The throwing the playing card came about because when I was in San Francisco, there were 3 other magicians working the sidewalk at the same time. One was Brian Bloodworth, who had been a student of Cellini's.
So he did like a cups and balls thing? Or?
No, he didn't do cups and balls, but his style, he was dressed like Cellini.
Okay.
He had a Cellini table, and he had a lot of... His skills are cigarette manipulation and coin manipulation.
Yeah.
And he was polished. He was a polished act back then. But he was working it, and Jeff Edmonds, who doesn't work anymore, he was like a juggler and a magician. He was from Aspen. He was working it, and a guy named Fast Eddie was working it as well. And Jeff, back in Aspen, used to throw playing cards. Well, I started throwing playing cards in high school when I was 14. But I would go in the gymnasium during break and throw them, so nobody saw it. I was just throwing.
Amazing.
And there was a book called Now You See It, Now You Don't, which is Lee Ross's father illustrated it.
Oh, wow.
And in that book, they taught you how to throw playing cards.
Right. It's like a full-on technique. It's not easy.
Yeah, so they showed you how to throw playing cards. So that's what I learned it from books, because everything I learned was from books.
How good of an aim do you have with that thing?
You can get pretty good aim, but when the wind comes, you get a different factor. So if you're in a closed space, and you mentioned, I forgot the other guy's name from New Zealand, who has a card ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same speed as throwing into a thing. In fact, what's the guy name who died recently? Who wrote the book Cards as Weapons? I forget his name now. But he's a magician. It'll probably come to me. So I think we all read that book back in the time. And so...
so you've been throwing cards since you were in school?
So I was 14, yeah. But then all of a sudden I was in San Francisco.
Right.
And Jeff was throwing cards because he was just trying to do the street as well. But he is a polished act from working restaurants.
Right.
And in order to get a crowd, we were throwing playing cards on top of the building across the street.
Across the street.
And people would watch it. And he knew this. He knew they were fascinated because he used to do it outside of Ute City Bank in Aspen.
Right.
And people would watch it.
Right.
So he knew they were fascinated with it. I didn't know they were because I was only throwing cards inside of a gym studio when it was break.
And there's no one there?
Yeah, nobody was there, so I didn't know anybody was fascinated with it.
So when did it occur to you that it wasn't obviously your finale right away, right?
No, it wasn't. In fact, that's when I realized that people were interested in it was when...
Right. So
we were all throwing playing cards across the street, even just for the fun of it. And but we all did it in our shows as well.
Right.
But then I read there's a book, some magician, Trevor Lewis maybe, but I'm not sure it was Trevor Lewis. It's a magician who wrote a book, and he said you should end with skill.
Right.
And so I said, then I'll put the card throw at the end.
Nice.
And the light bulb went off, and that was it.
That's your signature move.
Yeah, so it ended up, and so that from that point on, I was just throwing cards on top of
I think my favorite part
buildings
of that whole act is when you throw the first one and it doesn't go, and you pretend like it went.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, mate, that's so hilarious. I can't stop laughing whenever you do that, because you just like, you pretend you're seeing it, and then you're like, yep.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, man. I miss watching you, man. It's been so long.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's where I learned it. I mean, that's where I developed the finale, and also the square. I got the square from, because I was at a magic convention in San Francisco when I was performing.
This is the like mathematic trick?
Yeah, and Harry Lorraine, which you don't know because you weren't even born back.
Probably not.
Back in the day, there used to be a guy, there's another magician on television named Harry Lorraine who specialized in memory.
Right.
And he would memorize, like on television, he would name everybody in the audience on like one of those TV shows. Like, and they would sit down, so he would memorize the whole. Yeah. But he wrote a magic newsletter on, and he would talk about the square. And I was like, oh, it's mathematics. People know it's boring stuff like that. Right. But at the magic convention, he did the square. And it was, and he didn't do it the same way as I did. He just has put some numbers on and then had somebody yell out a number, and he filled it up really quickly. And his energy was so like, wow. And then so from that point on, I started learning that and put it in my show.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's getting the people. It's a weird effect because it fucks with people. And at first, they would look at it and then they would walk off.
Right.
So how do you get them to stick around?
Right.
Because it fucks it. It's called cognitive dissonance, and when it's like just messing with you so much, and that's you get that more with magic, and that's the biggest problem with doing street magic is that they can't deal with it, and they have to react.
They want to know how you did it.
Yeah, they don't. Sometimes they just can't. They're like, oh. I got to walk up.
It doesn't result in applause.
Yeah,
the way chucking a Diablo up in the air.
Yeah. It's not when they know what's going on, but they appreciate it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
You finish a magic trick, people are just like,
and that's the biggest aspect of, like Charlie Capers is not humorous, but he's very likable.
Oh, yeah.
And he does really strong magic. And because they like the person and they like the thing, and that's the whole thing. Everybody who does street performing knows you got to make them like you. That's what they're giving you money for. They like that person.
They like you. They don't care what you do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Up in Seattle, I ran across. Most people don't even know this guy. Reverend Chumley. You ever heard of that name before?
No.
Brilliant. He was a wordsmith, which is in a time when most of them, just doing the jokes with the. He wasn't a juggler. He was just a wordsmith. He was like talk in his
storyteller kind of thing.
No. It was like brilliant, over your head type. Sophisticated comedy, and I think he's still alive, but he lives in Port Townsend or something. I can't remember. He's still alive, though, I think. And he would, and that's initially when I first got the idea. He had a dog who would jump through a hoop of fire.
Yeah,
and with a big hoop, obviously.
Mate,
and so
put an animal in your act.
It was
crowd building. You'll never even forget about.
But
learning how to crowd.
And I didn't even see him on the street. I saw him at some like harvest festival or something like that. And he did it. But it was brilliant. His humor was so sophisticated, and he was like everything was original and everything was just beautifully written. And so that's when I got the idea of having my. Bird jumped through the fire.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is the same bird that you had, or was it a different bird?
It was my original bird. Yeah.
It was. And what kind of bird is it?
A peach-faced lovebird. Yeah.
How long did you have him for?
The original one I can't remember, but he got killed in Venice Beach, and then I got another one.
Was this the one that got taken from your show?
Yeah, the last one, the one in San Diego, the one I had the longest with gold.
Yeah.
And a bird came down.
He got abducted.
Seagull came down and grabbed him.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in San Diego. This was after I had left San Diego and been up in San Francisco for a while.
Right.
I decided.
Because I worry about a bird taking my dog, and I think how horrible that would be.
Yeah, that had to be a pretty big dog, a pretty big bird, and a pretty hungry one.
I got a pretty small dog, but
yeah, I know. I mean, a friend of mine, it was when I first showed up in
I've heard it's a thing.
What's that?
I've heard it's a thing, birds taking small dogs.
A big bird can take a small dog.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
like, I'd just be heartbroken seeing my dog fly away.
I didn't believe it when it happened to me.
Right.
I was in disbelief. It
You
took me
saw
about
it
an hour.
happen?
Yeah.
Saw it happen?
But I was in disbelief because I couldn't believe it because I didn't think seagulls ate birds, and I was in disbelief, and they do. The raptors.
Just came down and took him.
Yeah, and that's what happened in San Diego.
And then, so you had to change the show, obviously.
When that happened, for main part, I was living in. I was just visiting San Diego at the time it happened. So for the main part, I was in Colorado, and I didn't perform for 6 months after that.
Oh, wow.
I tried. I couldn't perform.
Yeah, no, it's understandable, mate.
So I didn't perform.
Your pets are your best friends, you know?
Yeah, that was it. And we had been all over the United States and Canada. And I used to sneak them into, before 9/11, I used to sneak them into Canada.
Oh, yeah?
Because there was so much restriction from America coming back. You had to go see a special, had to have all these permits and stuff.
So it's harder to go and come back than it was to go up.
It was, yeah.
Okay.
And after a while, I was screw it, I'll just sneak them in. And I used to stick them in pocket, like a vest, and zip them up,
right,
to hop a plane. Because before you didn't have to take off your vest and shit.
Yeah.
Before 9/11, you had to pick out your vest.
So you just jump on a plane with your jacket on.
Yeah, and even if you zip it up, it's dark, you won't do it. Even if you did do it, chirped, they wouldn't associate it with the bird.
No.
And it was, So yeah.
Wow. And so you went to Canada. Where'd you work in Canada?
Yeah, I was doing a couple of festivals. I did Whitehorse. I did the Vancouver Comedy Festival and Whistler. I think I did Whistler as well.
Yeah, they used to have a good street scene up there.
Yeah, it was okay. It was all right. It was just something, how they string festivals together. But I didn't do it much because the 9/11 happened and my bird got killed. And
right.
That thing. So everything changed. 9/11 changed everything anyway.
So I must have met you in around 2000.
Yeah,
in Boulder.
Yeah.
And in Boulder then, it was you and Zip Code Man and Bashi and Isak and Tom.
Yeah,
Tom Morrison was there.
Yeah, Tom probably was the big act then.
Right. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, but there were bigger. Ear Jazz used to work there.
Right.
And used to come out and do shows every once in a while. But when they came out, they were already, who Air Jazz is, don't you?
Nope.
Air Jazz was like three, Peter Davison, John Held, and Keziah Tenenbaum, I think is her name. And they're brilliant. They were like the Raspinis, the Raspinis?
Yeah.
So they weren't like the Raspinis, they were like a team act, like the Raspinis are the ones that used to work at Karamazov's.
Oh, right.
But they were more dance-oriented.
Okay.
And so they weren't...
Wasn't like the high-end juggling?
They were high-end juggling. They were higher-end juggling than probably both of those other acts.
Yeah.
They were definitely higher than both those other acts.
Nice. And they would come down and rip out shows down there? Yeah,
but they were on... So they were celebrities because they were on The Tonight Show a few times.
Right.
And they used to tour all over the world. They're no longer together now, but I often wonder
what street performing would be like if you had a little bit of celebrity.
Well, people were waiting because the buzz knew. So people were sitting waiting for them to rock. It wasn't
right.
They only came because they used to tour. Yeah. So they only came down, and they would say, "Oh yeah, we'll be down," and so there would be people waiting.
Yeah. That's cool.
Knowing that buzz, they were brilliant. They were brilliant.
Nice. Could you use an amp back then, or was it always no amps?
No, you couldn't use. They couldn't use an amp unless it was a special festival. So no, Boulder's has always not been an amp place.
I went a couple of years without getting an amp in the beginning, and I don't know. We just didn't have them in Sydney. It was in Canada when I noticed people had amps. David Aiken was like, "Why don't you have an amp with a microphone?" And I was like, "I don't know."
Yeah, because you didn't have that reference to it. Yeah. And San Diego didn't have an amp. Balboa Park, so you didn't have amps there. You don't have amps in Boulder. When we started in San Francisco, we weren't using amps.
No. Well, you kind of didn't need them.
Well,
you could just bellow over whatever noise it was.
I never had a good voice, but the best voices, like Tom, had a brilliant.
Shut that.
Yeah, he had a brilliant. He was like the Sergeant Carter of street performing.
Yeah.
When he first arrived, you probably experienced it. Yeah, because you saw him down in.
I met him in New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah. He basically told people what to do, and they did it. And he didn't. And I knew other performers learned what he didn't go any much forward. Mm-hmm. He told them what to do, and he waited until he did it, and then he moved forward.
Yeah.
Told them what to do, waited until he did it, then he moved forward. Yeah. So basically, they were followed. By the time he told them to give him money, they were giving him money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was
trained him.
Yeah, and his background was in sales. So
right.
But he was very aggressive. They didn't like him in Boulder too much. I mean, the powers that be didn't like him, but the audiences tended to like him, or some people didn't, but whatever.
Yeah.
But he was successful. So, he was there, but before him there was Jimmy Strinka, who was all original lines, very technical.
Yeah.
He's in stock market now. He was playing stocks.
Yeah, right.
And learned it, and then he's really good at that. He's married to one of the Keziah, who was one of the ear jazz people.
So what would your year look like? You would stay in Boulder in the summer, or
about that time I was doing Boulder in the summertime and going to San Diego in the winter.
Right.
But San Diego, once again, is only a 2-day pitch. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting in that respect because you were forced to only work 2 days. Right. And even those 2 days could be questionable because it wasn't the busiest pitch. You could almost miss it.
Right.
You got to have you after you
ride the waves.
You get a sense. Yeah. You get a sense of, this is good right now.
Mm-hmm.
You do it enough times, you're
Smell.
like, this is good now. I better do it now. You want to push everybody else. You want it to be your turn.
Yeah.
I learned that from San Francisco. You're like, whoa, I don't know what this is, but you feel it.
Yeah. I know that from surfing because I grew up surfing, and it's the same as a good wave coming.
Yeah, yeah.
You can just see it. You can smell it, you can see it, and you're just like, now is the time to open my mouth.
I know. Sometimes it's after, I remember me and the bike boy were down in Queenstown, and then the weather was bad, because the weather can be really bad in Queenstown, but once it clears up, you want to be at that first show.
First show, that's the one.
And getting down there, and him beating me to this fuck.
Yeah. Kenny does an hour.
Yeah. It's like, jeez. Or sometimes that's all you get.
Right.
Because the weather, that's all you get is that slot. You want to catch that slot, and then it might turn bad on you, too.
So when did you start going to New Zealand and Australia?
Let's see. After my bird got killed. And after I got married, and then that didn't work out, so I just started traveling.
Right.
And went to Australia. Did I go to Australia first? I think the first place I went to was Australia,
Yeah?
In fact, I met Nick Nicholas, and when I first started performing, I met him in San Francisco.
Oh, right.
And he came up and tried to give me a hug or something like that. And my bird could be anywhere.
Right.
So sometimes he'd be down on my shirt.
Yeah.
And I was like, God, don't...
I got a bird.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Crazy guy.
Yeah.
And when I met him, the next time after years of saw him, he'd been in San Francisco a few times, but after years of seeing him in San Francisco, or coming to San Francisco every once in a while, after that I went to Melbourne. Actually, I went to Sydney, then I came down to Melbourne.
Yeah.
So I just didn't even perform in Sydney. I just went down to Melbourne, and then I saw him again, and he reminded me of that story.
Right.
So yeah.
So he didn't give you a hug that time?
Well, yeah, I think maybe that was because he wouldn't know if my bird would get killed.
Right.
So I did Melbourne first, and then I asked him about. Melbourne always had a lot of performers, how it goes. Did Melbourne, and then I went over to Perth. Did Perth and met.
Fremantle or the Murray Street?
Perth and Fremantle was, the same crew was on work, both of them.
Yeah.
Fremantle on the weekends. Matty Blade was obviously there with bringing on his boat.
Yeah, he passed away.
Yeah, I know. It was sad.
Yeah,
he was an interesting person. I liked him. But
he's rubbed people the wrong way. But he's generally a pretty nice guy too.
Yeah, we got along, and he maybe he's not wasn't the best performer overall, but. And everything he did was closers, but it's Matty Blade.
Right.
There's no Tom Morrison. There's no Matty Blade. They break the mode after those two.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, some people don't like him. Yeah.
OGs, mate.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, I knew him when he was St. Matthew.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Because he said he was dating some girl. I forget the contortionist. I forget. No, he was dating this girl, and then she became a contortionist. I forgot her name now. She was with Ronnie for a while. Ronnie, that's right.
Yeah.
When she was like
years ago.
Yeah.
She was young. Yeah.
I didn't even know that until I met her later. But I didn't know him. So he was there. Who else was there at the time? I don't remember who else was there. I know he was there. Oh, Scotty. Scott
Chocolate?
Yeah. He was there. And a few other people.
And you were just working that Saturday?
During the weekdays in Perth, and then you got on a Fremantle on the weekends.
Beautiful spot, eh?
Yeah, that was nice. The Fremantle spot was nice.
Yeah.
Perth was
that's a city you can live in and street perform.
Yeah, it had a great beach
make
too.
A living, And
I'm not a beach person, but it was a great. Even Perth had a great beach.
The west coast of Australia is amazing.
Yeah. And that's the thing, because you hear about the Aborigines, but when I went on initially flew into Sydney and Melbourne, and you didn't see anybody.
No.
But when you got to the Perth, and you start seeing, it's not like the outback, but you got to see
the city natives, right? Yeah,
and see that. And also when I first got into Melbourne, I remember, why am I getting sunburned? I never get sunburned.
Holding the ozone layer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I better start wearing a hat
again. To Australia.
Yeah.
Sunburn.
And then the flies.
Yeah, well, we invented the hat that has corks on it.
I know, yeah.
So you shake your head and the corks.
Yeah.
Because you can have 100 flies on you at the one time, walking around certain places.
I found out about why that happens. Do you know why that happens? Why the flies?
No.
Well, the reason why they come in the city is because of the wind brings them in from the farms.
Okay.
But the reason why they get on you is not the big flies don't do that. It's the small flies because they don't have enough protein.
Right.
So they're going after saliva and your blood to get the protein.
Wow.
So that's why it's only the small flies that do that. That's why I was curious to look it up. So what's going on with these flies? The Aussie wave.
Yeah, that's it. It's always just And so you went to Perth, you went to Melbourne, Sydney, anywhere else in Australia?
Yeah, Perth, Melbourne, and did I go that year I didn't go to Adelaide that year. No, but I did end up going to Adelaide later on. I don't think that year I went to, maybe I did, but I can't remember. But I had gone, and then I came back a couple more times.
You went to New Zealand?
Yeah, then I went to New Zealand. And my initial going to New Zealand was through the Auckland Festival.
All right.
Yeah, I think that, So I did the Auckland Festival and worked my way down.
I did the first Auckland Festival, and then I did it again 20 years later.
Okay.
Because the first one was so bad.
I think I might.
It did get better, but not much.
Was that when Nick was booking him? Or
Nick, back in the beginning,
Yeah, I think that was. Yeah. I might have did the second or third one. I can't remember.
Right.
What it was.
Yeah.
It got me into New Zealand, and then I worked my way down.
Yeah.
And got this. So that was. I went in. I've never been to north of Auckland, but I went down to. So I went down. Down to Wellington, is it Wellington?
Mm-hmm. Wellington.
Wellington, yeah.
Yeah.
And
did you actually have trouble with your cart in the wind down there? Or?
It wasn't the cart was a problem. It was chase. I've never chased my hat more times in my entire life than. Because I had a hat on, and I would always
blown off.
Yeah, you're always chasing your hat, and you find out if anybody has an umbrella or not from Wellington. Unless you just destroy your album. But it's because you never know where it comes in so many different directions.
I would hate flying into Wellington.
Yeah, it's a very, you got to be a good pilot.
Good pilot, yeah, because there's a mountain there, and the runway's short.
Yeah.
So once you get over the mountain, you got to descend real quick and then stop before the end of the runway.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, and it's windy.
Yeah.
No.
So we did that. I went to Wellington, did Wellington for a little bit. Not the best place, but got to see some of
two malls, Manners Mall and Cuba Street Mall back then, right?
Yeah, I think
Manners is open now.
Yeah,
it's just cars again.
Yeah, I heard they changed it.
But Cuba, you can still do Cuba Street. Yeah,
and I don't know how many people work it, but it wasn't. When I went back there again, it was less. And all the alcoholics said, it's the whole thing is that people, if you don't work the spot, the alcoholics will take over the spot. They'll just take it over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they wanted to beat me up because.
So when did you get? You got?
Then I went to Christchurch. So that year I went to Christchurch. I went to Christchurch and went to Christchurch and I met. I don't know who I met then. Down in Christchurch at that time.
Were you down there when the festival happened at all?
I wasn't there during the festival. No, it was because first of all, back in that time, if you got booked for the, she wanted was it Jody? She wanted to be the first one to bring you over anyway, and she never booked me. She never gave me time of day, so whatever.
Right.
But so I never got that festival, and that's when it was good.
You were working Cathedral Square and Castle Street.
Yeah, the main one by the cathedral. Yeah.
Nice. That's a brilliant spot.
Yeah, it was nice. And what's his name? Brucey used to drive. I remember him driving up and sleeping on the pitch just to be the first one with his car. You could do that, I guess, at the time.
Yeah.
He's sleeping on the pitch with his car, so he can be the first one.
Yeah. And, that's an age-old street performance tradition.
The two, they were a team act back then. Mullet
and David.
Yeah. So they were there.
Motley too.
Yeah. They were doing it. I wonder who else was doing it at the time.
That's cool.
What's his name was there? He's got red hair.
Shay Hooray.
Shay, yeah. And I first met Shay in
he's
Wellington.
A businessman, is he?
Yeah, he always seems to be. And he was even making deals back in the day. So.
Yeah?
Yeah, he always seems to be good at his business thing.
Yeah, he's a top bloke.
Yeah, he seems to be good at snoozing and stuff like that. Nice guy, and he's got the rubber band thing. And he had all those characters, so he's a great festival act because he was one of those people that could always cater to whatever your needs were.
Always something different, always something unique.
Yeah, you want it, I'll do it, And there's some other people there I can't remember about.
So you got the boot from New Zealand somehow, or you just didn't get let in, or?
Yeah, well, I was working in Queenstown. I didn't start going that year. You looked at the thing in Queenstown. I didn't make it to Queenstown because it looked like it was raining. But Queenstown, when the weather, you never know. And then when I finally did go to Queenstown, it was me and another guy from England. What was his name? Max Fire. He was a juggler in a bicycle act.
All right.
Hardcore, because he used to camp out and come down.
Right.
And it was me and him. But if you've been to Queenstown?
Yeah.
Well, it's a pitch where, if there's more than 3 people, somebody's not working.
Yeah. There's only a certain amount of time.
Yeah, it's a time thing, and there's somebody's not working. And I used to work it during the day and then work it at night and the day. And it's a small town, and they have a small town mentality about that place. And a lot of the boat people that are out in front and stuff like that don't like the performers and stuff.
Right.
A weird energy about it. But it's great when you're doing the shows. It's a brilliant place to work.
I mean, the old street performer versus vendor thing, that's going to happen forever.
Yeah.
You're blocking my store. I'm bringing people here.
Yeah.
It's just it's the clash. It's the fight. It's never ending.
Yeah.
Anywhere you go.
Yeah. Some of them
there's no answer.
Yeah, but I think that was the initial thing in Clearwater sometime, and then they figured, well, let's see if we can make this work.
Yeah.
But classic. Even the festivals, if you get sometimes you do a Renegade Street Festival, And the people next to you are like, oh, no, it's ruined us, because they're trying to sell their thing.
Right. I paid for this booth.
Yeah, that type of thing.
When you look for a spot, you need a building across the street.
I look for a building, for the act now. I think I told you I'm working on a silent show, which doesn't in turn a building or even throwing a playing card. Because there's an interesting thing about the square, which is a mathematical thing, and throwing a playing card is a square is on such a weird energy thing that. So it's actually, sometimes it's not a good thing to throw a playing card because you turn into monkey boy. Because you just did this thing that they're like totally screwed up on, and then you follow it with throwing a playing card.
Right.
It sort of diminishes what you just did.
Right.
Because you just...
Well, I mean, it is a playing card, which is a magician's tool.
Yeah.
So it fits. It's perfect.
No,
but it's just like, oh my God, look at this. Look at this guy. You're not a huge dude, you know. You're just a medium-sized dude who can chuck a playing card way the fuck over there. It's awesome.
Yeah. But sometimes it doesn't. It's a weird. You end with. Sometimes I've done it without the play. So it's sometimes money-wise, I might be losing sometimes money. Like throwing a playing card is throwing a playing card, but the presentation, I do a lot of times it's 15 minutes of throwing the playing card or doing that.
Oh, yeah.
So it's that presentation that makes it work. It's not just, I can throw a play. Sometimes if I don't like the show and I just want to end it, and I told them that, I'll just throw it on top of the building and just, okay, show's over.
Right.
And
what if there's, could you do a finale that, if you can't do the playing card?
I've done it in places, which is a finale is a square.
Right.
But like I said, I'm going silent because I want to work everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so the square is not a good effect for everywhere because it's still you got to talk.
It's wordy. So you're gonna go to Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
To learn how to do a show in
try
silence.
to make it silent. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool, man.
And do it that way. But the square does work in places especially if you build it up. It's like you throw it's where you put the hat pitch.
Yeah.
So you put it right before the finale of the square. Yeah. Like you do the square, then you build it up, and then the response to the square is they give money. Yeah. Because you're like, oh fuck, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing, but. I worked, the Street Performing Championship in Dublin.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and that's in a park.
It's in a park, right. Yeah.
I mean, part of it is because they have the perimeter, too. So when I was getting booked, when I was scheduled for the perimeter, I would throw it on top of buildings.
Yeah.
Or windows. Windows are interesting, especially if there are people in it. Because then you get that whole...
You throw it in the window?
Yeah, so you throw it through the window.
Whoa, I mean, that's good aim, man.
Yeah, well, it takes a while because you never know the wind's going up.
Yeah.
But you can get that interaction with the person.
Yeah,
that type of thing.
That's cool.
And even if you're not there...
I can imagine the applause if you do it down, throwing 10 cards and all of a sudden they catch one.
Yeah, they do that.
Oh,
it happens.
gosh.
Yeah, it happens.
The audiences just go crazy.
Yeah, sometimes that happens in other places too. I mean, so sometimes they'll throw it in windows.
Yeah.
And then people, and if they're good at humor, they'll bring out, hey. Open your mouth,
That's cool.
Thing.
So what did you do in the park?
I brought a pole with a net on it.
Oh, okay.
30-foot pole with a net on it.
Right.
That's the biggest crowd I've ever had.
Yeah.
Was at champ, and I realized that the pole, it's like being on a pole without being on a pole because you have eye candy. Because you got eye candy. A lot of jugglers have eye candy.
So you would throw the card and then catch it with the net on a
Somebody
pole.
would be holding the pole.
Someone would be holding it.
So and the net's on the top of the pole.
Right.
So I'm throwing it up into this 30-foot pole.
How wide was the opening?
I don't know. Like a big hula hoop size.
Hula hoop size. Okay. Still difficult.
Yeah. It's like about the smaller than the window, or about the size of the window, or something like that. Right. Yeah, that was the biggest crowd I've had, and then that's when and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, I can still, and that's another. It's not the silent show, but it's a talking show where I'm thinking, how can I? Because the audiences are changing, you got to change with the audience.
Yeah.
And the advantage of the juggling shows that they do bring out, even jugglers. Robert Nelson had the little unicycle, but now they started
higher and higher.
6 foot, and then started
22.
That's right. Yeah. And Chuck was doing a 22 before everybody was going.
Yeah. No one. I mean,
nobody does 22 because you had to be mad to do it.
It's rare that you see even a 12.
No, you had to be mad to do it. He fell from that.
Oh man.
Yeah, he fell from that. He didn't do it for years. And then when he was trying to get back into it, because that 22-foot unicycles, those Tom Millars, broke down to a 16-footer.
Right. Yeah.
And so when he was getting his guts up to do the 16, because he had let me give it a try. So I hopped up on the 16-footer. And I can ride a unicycle. That's the first thing I learned as a kid. So I ride a unicycle.
Can you ride a 16-foot unicycle?
I can't idle. And so I got up on there.
You rode around on it?
No, I didn't. I'm getting it out.
That's funny. Chad got a hold. Wacky Chad got a hold of a 13-foot unicycle once, and it didn't look sturdy. And he got up in front of my house holding onto a tree. And he's like, "I'm not letting go of the tree, bro. I'm climbing down."
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mark Riggs was doing a show in Boulder. And back into that time, like when I met you, you were up at the top and I was down at the bottom. So he was down the bottom, I was at the top. I think that's what it was. Yeah, because you bounce off of each other. Yeah. And I had a group of guys go down and steal his unicycle, his 12-footer or whatever it is,
right? And
bring it up with me. And they held it and I climbed up. But I'm not used to, first of all, I can't idle.
Yeah.
Second of all, you got to train your people. Mm-hmm. And once I got up there, I was like, fuck me, because these guys don't know what the fuck they're doing. Yeah. And I didn't know how to train them. Mm. And I was so glad that he came up and grabbed that. Get out of there.
Yeah.
But, wow. Just playing around,
Yeah.
But so I was on the 16, but I never rode. So.
Damn.
But yeah, Chuck's back on the 22, or he got his courage back up. He actually sold it for like nothing, like $800. I would have bought it if I'd have known that.
Oh my God! Wow.
Then he had to buy it back for like $2,000 or something.
Wow. Yeah. Man, that's wild. And but you said you got bands from New Zealand and Australia.
Yeah. So I'd been doing New Zealand, like a month or two in New Zealand. For a few years, and there was one point though. Me and who was there at the time? It was me. This was Queenstown I'm talking about. Me, Bruce, which is Ganja the Great, and the guy from England,
Rob?
Max Fire.
Oh, Max Fire.
I think Rob was there too.
Rob Roy?
If it wasn't Rob, no, it was. What's the other guy that got banned from San Francisco?
Akron,
but what's his brother's name?
Piper
was there at the time. So it was, at least those four. It was me, Bruce, Piper, and Max Fire. Yeah, okay, you guys can't work. You got to work over here. You can't work. We're not giving out. And so that year, well, first of all, me and Bruce the other ones left. Piper left, and but it was just me and Bruce there, and we were trying to talk to them and get what's going on and stuff like that.
Shutting the pitch down.
Yeah, see what's going on. And then and Bruce was taking a paragliding course.
Right.
And right at that time, on his final landing, he broke his leg. And so he was, we were going to go to the paper and say, hey, bring this to the paper.
Yeah.
So the day I left, I was on the front page of the paper. Right. Like going back to Christchurch, and Bruce was stuck there, couldn't pay his accommodations because he couldn't. And from later on, I heard that he went out with a broken leg and tried to do shows, still doing shows. So I stayed away from Queenstown for a year and did Hobart.
Right.
That year.
Yeah, Salamanca Market.
Then I just checked to see what's going on. I saw some video of Bike Boy in Queenstown, so I thought it must be open.
Right.
So I went back.
So you went back.
So I went back and I did a couple years, and then I was working on a new show. A friend of mine, you asked what did I replace the Burt with, and I started doing a rope routine, a comedy, another very rope routine to fill in that spot. And a friend of mine in Boulder wanted me. He couldn't figure out how to do it, or he wasn't good at it. He said, "I'll trade you that for this other thumb tie," which is thumb ties where you tie your thumbs up and penetrate things. So he taught me that, and I taught him the rope thing. But I didn't want to do it exactly like he did. So I was working on a different thing. I wanted to put people in handcuffs, 2 people, volunteers in handcuffs, and then penetrate their thing. So that's what I was going to practice that and do this now and do it. But in retrospect, you bring 2 sets of handcuffs in your luggage, it comes up on the X-ray.
Ooh. So they pulled you aside.
So they pulled. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I think it's the handcuffs that it was not the fact that I was showing up that time of year all the time. Yeah. Plus, when they gave them more reason to pull me aside because I had 2 sets of handcuffs in my thing, and then they opened it up and see all this other stuff. And
were you doing it?
Yeah. And then my biggest problem was that I didn't have a stage name.
So
I used my name.
Yeah.
So when they when they Google, what you can do now, all of a sudden there's me, even, articles and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I got, so they put me in jail for a day and sent me back to LA. And
you're how long is your band?
I don't know if it was, I think I'm flagged.
You're
so
flagged.
The band is, if I had a gig, I can come in on that gig, but I can't just say I'm coming in a tourist visa.
Right.
Maybe there is. I don't know the band. I don't know how that works. We've let them even talk to them. I was still playing. I never confessed. I never. I don't confess.
Yeah.
Because I played that game in England before too. Come on, no, we're playing chicken. I'm not saying shit.
Yeah.
And then even in England, I don't even come in through Heathrow anymore. I come through. I'll come into Edinburgh for the festival, or I'll come in Dublin and take the ferry across.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
but
England can be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and I was actually watching it might have been in Australia. There was a TV show with. So I saw there used to be a TV show on talking about things, and you would see live people getting searched in England and stuff like that, custom.
Yeah. Border Patrol,
type of thing. And they were the real customs people that were on the TV show.
Yeah.
And so the guy who me and him played chicken food was one of the guys that was on the TV show.
Right.
Yeah. But he let me in. But after that, I was like, nah, unless I have a legitimate thing, I'm not coming to England. I just went through.
It sucks with the internet these days, mate. They just Google you. And they find things, and it's like, you're a street performer. And Australia's notorious for it, turning away street performers, and England as well.
Yeah.
And I got turned away from the US.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And, luckily I was engaged already to an American, but I still had to go back to Australia.
Yeah.
And go through the application there, which,
They didn't put you in jail for a day, did they?
No, I was definitely under arrest. And put in a interrogation room or whatever.
But on a flight.
They let me go.
Oh, they let you go in?
Not in. No. They turned me back to Canada. I was coming down from Canada.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But the same deal. They Googled me, found a clipping of me doing a show at Faneuil Hall.
Best advice for those people listening is
erase yourself from the internet.
Get your stage name first of all.
Yeah, get a stage name. Yeah.
Call yourself Gaza. Yeah.
Yeah, you asked me earlier who my favorite performer is, and I think about it for a minute, and I think it's got to be someone I can watch no matter how many times.
Yeah.
200 times, and so I thought about that, and then I said Gaza because of that. So I can watch Gaza hundreds of times and still laugh my ass off.
Yeah, I wouldn't laugh at Gaza, but I enjoy watching him. Yeah, Bob Hartman, the guy that you never saw, but he still is around, so if you get a chance to check him out, I can watch him over and over again.
Is he your favorite performer?
During the San Francisco time, he was,
Right.
At the San Francisco time, he's still one of my favorites.
Right.
Yeah. So he was definitely a street performer. Yeah, he actually might be.
And what's your favorite pitch?
I'm still looking for that, yeah.
Still searching for the perfect wave, huh?
Yeah.
How many countries have you been to?
Jeez. Well, when I first started, it was only Canada and thing in Tijuana, as you call it, Mexico.
You did shows in Tijuana?
No, I didn't. But I tried all over England, all over at least Western Europe.
Mm-hmm. Well, Europe's cool because you can just kind of show up and do a show.
You can, and that's nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the place where you really wanted to work. Switzerland is where the money is strong.
Yeah.
And Zurich was amazing, but they wouldn't allow me to do it. Where it used to be, I heard it in the heyday, it was amazing.
In Switzerland,
spot.
There are rules, and you must follow the rules in Switzerland. Yeah.
So the best thing in Switzerland, if you're going, don't ask, let them tell you. I mean, there are other parts of Zurich is the one where they have the rules. Other places, they're
a little bit lax?
Yeah, I think you can get away with it in other places. But Zurich, which is the best one you really would want to go to, is the one, there's that festival in the summertime that corresponds with Edinburgh that happens at the same time, which is supposed to be a brilliant festival, which you can't.
Theater spectacular.
Yeah. But other than outside of that, you can't. I mean, you can work there. You can work down by the water. Mm-hmm. But where you want to work is up on that.
Where the festival is?
No, where the cobblestone thing is, which is, I mean, that's the thing. You can work that festival.
Right.
You can just, people come up for that festival, but outside of that festival, you want to work the main pedestrian.
Yeah.
But they don't let you. You're just on it. And back in the day when Cellini, which I had never seen Cellini, I didn't see Cellini till at least 15 years when I was into it before. I saw all those tunes, but I never saw Cellini.
Right.
And then I hadn't seen Gazzo didn't start releasing his stuff until, so I saw Gazzo when I first went up to that comedy festival in Vancouver. Otherwise, I heard of his name, but I never saw him. Right. One of those guys who only.
So you're looking for your favorite pitch. What will it be? It'll be like a spot with just you and one other person, or
that's the best scenario, isn't it?
Is it
you and another person.
You and one other. That's great.
That's the best because you get a rest and you get somebody to watch your stuff.
Yeah.
That's the best
you
scenario.
You get to do lots of shows.
Yeah. Scenario. That's the scenario that you want. And you want one that you can't stand it. I mean, there's some performers you just don't want to be around anyway.
Yeah. You want to be able to hang out with someone afterwards and go.
Yeah, you enjoy that person.
You know?
Yeah, that scenario is always good.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like everywhere you go, there's just you run into people you know. Being a busker, I don't know. Like musicians like that. Comedians like that? I guess comedians are. They kind of know each other.
Comedians sometimes, especially once you get your thing because you're on the road.
Yeah, right.
And you mix up with... Because I was doing... Back in the heyday, I was doing comedy stuff. And
do you think comedians have the same kind of like open harem situation that street performers have?
Some of them do.
Because we're here hanging out, staying at Bob's place.
Yeah.
If someone comes to Boston, they come stay at my place. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, hey, I'm going to be in this city. Who lives there? Hey, come and stay.
Yeah. It also
it's
depends
kind of
on
worldwide
the people.
couch family. Cool.
Yeah. But some people get out of it. I mean, like Nick does the cruise ships now a lot, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he does much street.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it happens to everyone. You just find a new thing where you can do your act.
If you're a good businessman, you do.
Is that what you're saying, Kenny? You're not a good businessman?
Yeah, I think a good street performer is a bad businessman.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some people, like, if the act's big enough, then you can make the money, and if you invest it well, then it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. So I think if you invest it well...
And you bought the land, right?
Yeah, but I should have invested a long time ago. I should have bought land in Boulder a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not the best pitch. Finding the best pitch is finding the place where the land's going to go up.
Well, let me just say, you said that you were thinking about moving to New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
Well, Boston might just be your favorite pitch, mate.
It might be.
You never done it?
No, I haven't done it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
You live in this country and you perform all over it and never.
I considered it.
Yeah.
And I came through it, and I worked up to that. What's the other pitch?
Harvard Square.
Yeah, I went up there in the off season. It was terrible. I didn't try that up in the off season. And I was totally committed on a terrible show.
Right.
And had a good time.
It can be tough,
yeah.
Harvard Square.
But I got to see it. I got to see a little bit of it. But I never, I was in a different space. I'm still in a different space. So I'm working on that silent show, see where that goes.
Yeah. Well, Boston has a great pitch that's not, I mean, it's great sometimes. It's like any pitch, you know. But when it's great, it's great. And you get like, you got to jump through the hoops. You got to get the license and have the insurance and all that. But we have a draw once a month, and you choose your spots for the next month. And when you have a spot, it's 2 hours. And we also have a magic pitch now.
So this whole podcast is an advertisement. You're getting paid by...
Right, Faneuil Hall to bring in...
Yeah.
Yes.
You're actually getting paid for this. Well, recruiting. This is a road trip that you're...
Yeah, that's it. I'm looking for acts, man.
You do it, yeah.
But no, mate, that's the thing is when you know they have a guest performer policy now, which I never used to have, which is great because in the summertime, a lot of the Boston performers go to Busker Fest, go this, go there, and so there's a lot of space open in the summer. So they have like a guest performer thing in the summer now in Boston. So if you want to go and work in Boston, you can send your tape, audition and whatever, and then you can be in the draw.
See what goes on there.
Yeah. But also if you're moving there, if you're like,
then you're close by.
Yeah, like it's a nice place to do shows. Yeah. And it's a cold place to live, but...
So is New Hampshire.
Yeah, so is New Hampshire. But the thing is, Faneuil Hall it's a tourist destination. So the tourists are always there, and if it's middle of December and it's a nice day, they'll be there.
Yeah.
You know? So you can never tell. Like, there's not really obviously there's a set season. It's April to end of October. But those other months, there's some random days in there. Just magic. Definitely not in January, but...
Gotta watch my fingers, so I mean that stopped working at that time.
Right, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The thing about magicians is their fingers stop.
Yeah. So you're going to go to Southeast Asia, you're going to work on a silent act, and then what's your goal for the silent act? Just to be able to go to different countries?
Yeah, I want to, expand it because the silent's interesting. To work different countries, work anywhere.
Like where?
There's no limitations. You can check out everywhere, see go all of South America, all of whatever.
There's so many South American buskers now. Yeah,
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, tons. In Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Every festival, half the cast from South America.
Is that right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned one guy that you said you liked, the magician from South America or something.
Yeah, Funny Quito.
Okay.
He has a really great silent street magic show, and it's just brilliant.
Yeah, the one guy I met, he's from Tijuana, but he works in San Diego.
Mm-hmm. I think music has a lot to do with it. It's got to be something. Yeah. Can't just be completely silent.
No, but that's true. But then, you get people like Pepe in his prime. Yeah. And so you definitely know that silent can work. Yeah. Completely silent.
Totally.
And it's always that, can you take something, the silent act that I'm planning on working on is to music. Mm-hmm. But it's always inspiring to watch people who work without, no, you don't need an amp, don't need anything, just come out and do it.
When did you get to see Pepe?
I didn't see him in his prime.
No?
I saw him when they were arresting him every time he tried to perform.
Ah, right.
Yeah, but I haven't met him. I've known him.
I had seen him in the late 90s doing shows in London and in Edinburgh, and he was killing. Yeah. But it was probably maybe 4 or 5 years after that. The downward spiral started for Pepe. Yeah. Then he got banned from Covent Garden, he got banned from the Edinburgh Draw. Yeah. But he didn't change. Huh? He didn't change. No, the society changed. Yeah. Yeah, it used to be okay to be a drunk and be a performer.
Just like
and sleep all
what's
day.
The guy from Washington Square Park? Charlie Burnett.
Oh, right. He was the same?
No, I'm not saying he's the same, but a lot of the stuff that he did, if you saw his videos, I don't know if you've seen his videos, they wouldn't work now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
They wouldn't work now.
Nope.
I mean, I'm sure, like I said, if he'd have developed, his show would have developed differently.
Mm-hmm.
If he had started, he still would have been Charlie Burnett, probably brilliant.
Yeah.
If he started now.
Yeah.
But
be catering
back
to
then,
the audience.
yeah, you work with what you have.
Yeah.
And
Or
back
what
then
people will accept.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's the point. Is that even though I'm using music and a lot of the silent acts are using music or whatever, music is not necessarily for a silent act. A good silent act just like doesn't need music.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And though it's nice to have an amplifier,
right,
in the right spot,
the initial get the crowd kind of vibe.
Still do
crowd building with music is a way to do it.
Yeah.
Because crowd building silently without talking, I mean, yeah, it can be done.
Uh-huh.
But it's tough.
But you just grow, because that's the whole point. Is what we do is still a lot of times we grow, and then if it works and you don't want to, well, it's not broken, why change it?
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, like you say, you're still tweaking your half pitch.
You got to tweak it.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for ways to change jokes and put new jokes in and tweak this out and tweak the hat pitch and what if I said this when the guy came out? You know what I mean? Just you got to keep it fresh for yourself. I find even with clothing, if I feel a little bored with my show, I'll get a new pair of shoes and I'll wear them to the pitch and I'll be
interesting.
I feel good in my new shoes. I'm going to do a rocking show today. You know what I mean? It's so weird. Just changing a little thing like your shoes.
I've never been in that. The silent show that I plan on doing, I'm thinking of using a nose. And that'll be the biggest costume thing I've ever done.
A red nose?
Yeah. Because it gives you a little bit more license, and you don't have to. Somebody recently, right before I came here, I was saying to a friend, and he said, your show, and I was showing him some of the music I was thinking of using, and he says, I don't think that fits your show. You're like this street smart person. And I didn't get that view of myself. Mm-hmm. But that was his view, so it might be valid, I don't know. And he said, you should play hip-hop, which I wouldn't use hip-hop. I'm 60 years old, I wouldn't do hip-hop music.
Yeah.
But that's what he said. I don't know what his... Because half the time people think I'm come up and, people will come up and say shalom or something to me. Right.
They think you're a Hasidic Jewish guy.
Exactly.
Yeah, without the robe.
Yeah, say, where are you from? Say, Pittsburgh. No, really, where are you from?
Williamsburg.
Yeah.
So you have any wise words for the street performing community or the new street performing community, the new generation?
Yeah, save up and reinvest your money, because that's, if you gotta... Yeah. The smart ones, and there are some smart ones, still put the money... Like Fred Anderson, back in the day, he bought a condo or something like in San Francisco. Yeah. And everybody's like, wow. So it's like, now he's like,
oh my God.
I could never do that now, he says. And it was a smart move. Yeah. And Fred's done a lot of things back. He was always the one, when video first came out, people were adding video for the promo. He was the one that first did that. Right. I mean, he was one of the ones that, he adapted technology.
Yeah, right. And there's a few guys like that. Like Dom Ferry was that guy in Sydney. Mm-hmm. He could make the videos. Up in Boston, Jim McComb was the guy that could make the videos. Up in Canada, it was David Aiken. You know what I mean? There's always that guy.
And Nick Nicholas was
figured it out,
bringing product because people like product. We moved into it's kind of depressing, but that's the reality. Mm-hmm. People want a product.
It's true.
They like your show, but give them a product even gives them more reason. So they're like, oh yeah. So
it helps, especially in like festivals. Given that little upsell, they might not have given you a 20 before, but for a T-shirt, for a DVD, for a hat.
Yeah, they might have given you a 20, but that gives you more, and more people that buy it. Other people. And you know what? I do hats, right? So I'm selling hats after shows for a 20.
20 by donation, blah, blah, blah. It's just the way he worded it. And people put them on their head right away and then walk over to the next show. And then the next performer has to look at people wearing my hat, knowing that person already gave me a 20.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, it's been good talking to you, mate.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers, buddy.
Yeah.
And there you have it. Once again, there will be a YouTube version of this podcast with a slideshow of photos provided by Kenny. There'll be a link to the video in the episode notes, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the Busker Hall of Fame YouTube channel. We'll be posting more interviews there in the coming months. I want to mention another podcast you should check out called Missed Management. It features Vinyl Burns trading voicemail messages with variety artists in hopes of booking them a gig. Each episode features a different performer. It's a behind-the-scenes look, or listen, at difficult artists and inept management. Each episode an improvised conversation of miscommunication and nonsense. I'll have a link to that in the episode notes as well. If you're a regular listener, thanks! You know this podcast is a labor of love, but we do need sponsorship to keep it going and release episodes more frequently. So if you'd like to become a sponsor of the podcast or know someone who would, contact me at magic@buskerhalloffame.com. You can also visit the Busker Hall of Fame website and throw a little love into our online hat by clicking on the donate button, or become a sustaining supporter of this project at patreon.com/BuskerStories. Thanks in advance for supporting this project and helping keep busking history alive. Music for this podcast came from 357 Lover. Links to both songs are available in the notes section of this episode on the Busker Hall of Fame website. You can subscribe to this podcast in iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and Spotify, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell a friend about it and leave us a 5-star review. It'll help get the podcast noticed, and we'd really appreciate it. If you'd like someone to be interviewed or feel a certain voice has not been heard, please reach out to me and let me know. We're doing our best to capture interviews and stories with as many performers as we possibly can. It's up to you to help fill in the gaps. On behalf of myself, Al Millar, who did the interview, Kim Potter, who did the preliminary edit, and the rest of the team of the Busker Hall of Fame, remember, if you can't laugh at yourself, find someone else and laugh at them. I'm Magic Brian. Thanks for listening.